right. Let me start with a personal question. When's the last time you got lucky? Not lucky like that. But think of an opportunity that brought you to where you are now. Who helped you get lucky, and where did it lead you? See, we often think of our mentors and teachers who are older and wiser as those that provide new opportunities and help open new doors. But how much of our lives have actually been shaped by our peers? Opportunities can be big things that shape our lives, like learning from someone who inspires you or getting a job in your field. But more often, they're small things that go a long way, like standing on the right side of the escalator. So let me tell you how I've experienced the power of sharing opportunity through a peer network called the Young Professionals Chronic Disease Network, and how we've been able to engineer and not just hope for opportunities for people to get lucky and turn luck into a regular occurrence. So where did it all start for me? In 2009, I was finishing my undergraduate studies in biology in London, Ontario, when I lost a friend to cancer. We had just celebrated Clem's remission over New Year's Eve in a Toronto piano bar, singing at the top of our lungs. And losing him at such a young age, despite all the treatment a first-class health system could offer, made absolutely no sense. And I was angry. Skipping ahead to 2013, I was working in Kenya, and I saw this contrast that made me angry all over again. So I went to this small village in the desert with no running water, but enough sugary soft drinks to bathe in. On the other hand, insulin, a life-saving medicine that controls sugar levels, was discovered a century ago, still didn't make it into the hands of half of the people worldwide who need it. And this is a fragment of a big global problem. See, diabetes is a problem everywhere. Cancer is a problem everywhere. And the same is true for mental illness and other non-communicable diseases. Somehow, we've all been touched by these diseases, right? But preventable death and disability from non-communicable diseases is a huge and rapidly growing problem in low and middle income countries that we can no longer afford to ignore. There are so many solutions that we have to make and keep people healthy that just don't make it to reach the world's majority. So let me take you back to Nairobi. I was working there, and I came across the website of the Young Professionals Chronic Disease Network, which was growing as an online network at the time. And I saw that medical students were meeting up locally, so I joined them. And so we got together and talked about, well, firstly, how are we ever going to remember the name of this thing, Young Professionals Chronic Disease Network? Try saying that 10 times fast, or even once. But more importantly, over the months, we shared our concerns on how our generation would be left to deal with these big problems and what we could do to create solutions. After all, young people are often at the forefront of movements to create change. You might have heard that just this year in London's Parliament Square, the first woman was commemorated with a statue, suffragist Millicent Fawcett. And at age 19, Millicent got lucky. She heard philosopher John Stuart Mill speak on universal women's suffrage. And that was an opportunity that led her to take on a leadership role in the fight for women's rights in the UK in the late 19th, early 20th century. And history is filled with many other inspiring examples of young people leading change. So we came together and thought about how can we create this collective shift in how we think about death and about disease and health on a global scale. And that's for a few reasons. One is that these are not just diseases of the rich. In fact, people living in poverty are hit the hardest. The second is young people are affected. For example, mental illnesses often start before age 24. And lastly, the impacts of these diseases extend far beyond health. They affect our ability to lead happy and productive lives. For example, diabetes management often costs over half of the average monthly salary in Kenya. Can you imagine over half of your income going to treatment just to stay alive? And think of the opportunities that you would lose from being in these circumstances. So, back in Nairobi, my colleague, Dr. Duncan Matheka, said to me one day, the network is growing and formalizing, hiring an executive director to develop this into a global organization. You should do it. In that moment, Duncan not only revealed my opportunity for me, but nudged me with his words that he believed I could take on this enormous feat of building and running a global nonprofit startup. And I got lucky. I applied and I got the job. A dream job to work on a topic I'm passionate about and learning from people all over the world, both peers and senior experts, at the early stages of my career. So, I gathered a team of volunteers, and we knew that we wanted to create a space and platform for passionate minds from our generation to come together and create local change where little else was being done, connected to a global network of support that would breed fresh ideas and create new opportunities. And we were driven, learning from social movements of the past, we were driven by 3 principles for action. These are shared purpose, shared values, and shared leadership. And I'll come back to these. So we went from sitting around the table and as a small group of people, and at that time already connected to about 2,000 people online, but we grew to over 6,000 members worldwide with 13 city hubs who were taking real action for policy and social change. Real things were happening. There were leadership and advocacy workshops, campaigns, and discussions with policymakers. And we even created a completely new research fellowship to fill a training gap on non-communicable diseases in low and middle income countries. And this is our first cohort that started last year. And they're doing research on topics across like nutrition, cancer, and mental illness in East Africa. See, this network allowed us to create opportunities for people with the talent, grit, and determination to come together to address these preventable health disparities. And I began to find myself in change-making discussions with important people at the United Nations and the World Health Organization, where I had the opportunity to bring the concerns and solutions of the next generation to these discussion tables, informed by our members on the ground who are really connected to the problem. Then, in May 2016, we were introduced through one email to Joseph Mikoba, a medical student at the time in Kampala, Uganda. And Joseph informed us that the only radiotherapy machine in the country had just broken down in April 2016, leaving thousands of people requiring life-saving cancer treatment stranded. Now, close to 30,000 cases of cancer are diagnosed or even not diagnosed, in Uganda every year, and about half of them will require radiotherapy. So Joseph brought together a team of 6 people, created a city hub, and they launched a 4-week Twitter campaign to hold their government leaders accountable to bringing radiotherapy back to the country. And with the support of our global network, this campaign really created a splash. The issue was brought back to the newspapers, the radio, and Ugandan president's son even retweeted our hashtag. And they got a commitment from the Minister of Health to commit to a timeline to finalize the bunker for the radiotherapy machine that was being held up. And a year later, in late 2017, radiotherapy was made available again to Ugandans in Kampala, rich or poor. And so this small team played a role in making that happen. You see, we never get anywhere alone. And this one opportunity for me to take up a role in a network grew beyond anything I could have imagined. So what can you do to create your network of opportunity? I'll take you back to our 3 principles: shared purpose and urgency to act. For us, health inequalities and non-communicable diseases in particular were the issue that brought us together. What's your purpose? Shared values. We wanted our work to be driven by the values of equity and social justice. And shared leadership. We knew that by coming together and by sharing challenging workloads, as well as opportunities to develop our knowledge and skills, could result in real change on a much broader scale, even if it's just in the lives of a few people. Nobel laureate Amartya Sen says, "Poverty is the deprivation of opportunity." And with that in mind, think about what you can do to create a more equal and just world. It might just take one introduction. Share your network, knowledge, or skills with someone on the opposite side of the world or next door. So I'll end how I began. How can you help someone else get lucky? Thank you.